Today we're checking out the brand new OM-5 Mark II, and specifically why this camera stands out from the rest when it comes to the ultimate travel adventure photography camera. Let's check it out. So OM was nice enough to sponsor this video to showcase the new OM-5 Mark II. But without further ado, let's get this thing out of the box and see what we get. Alright, first up you can see the camera here in its awesome new color, but we're gonna wait to grab that of course. And here we get a USB-C cable, the included camera strap, a battery, and then of course we got the OM-5 Mark II. Look at that, the color actually almost perfectly matches with the cardboard of the box. Alright, so here it is, the OM-5 Mark II in its brand new color. On video, it pretty much perfectly matched the color of the cardboard box, but in person, it's a little bit of a lighter color. I think it looks great, and it kind of perfectly matches who this camera is targeted for, which is really the adventurous, traveler, outdoor photographer. And then as for the body and the design of this, it's very, very similar to the original OM-5. So you're getting an extremely small, compact, and portable camera body, but with still a surprising amount of adjustments, customizability, and buttons and dials built into the body. You know, even though this is a more entry-level targeted camera, the body itself absolutely does not feel like an entry-level body other than the size and weight of this. The body as a whole feels surprisingly rugged and well-built, which makes sense because it kind of has to be. This is IP53 weather resistant, which means this camera can withstand a lot more than almost any other brand of interchangeable lens mirrorless camera like this. And then for the sensor, you're getting a 20 megapixel micro four thirds sensor in this camera, and this gives you some incredible looking, sharp, awesome photos straight out of the camera. And even cropping into the photos, they still look really sharp and really detailed. Now, unfortunately, since this is an unreleased camera, I can't actually access any of the raw files in Lightroom. So all the photos I've taken with this camera, and of course all the photos you see in this video, are JPEGs, either straight out of the camera or with just slight adjustments and edits. Another incredible feature, and in my opinion, this is one of my favorite features of this camera, is how good the IBIS system is. You know, especially coming from Canon and Sony cameras, which are what I typically use, the IBIS or in-body image stabilization system on this camera is incredible. But really where the IBIS system is going to stand out the most is while recording video with this camera. So with the OM-5 Mark II, you can record up to 4K at 30 frames per second, but you can also do Cinema 4K, which is a little bit wider, in 24 frames per second, and then of course 1080p at 120 frames per second for slow motion video. And all these modes have unlimited record times, so there's no 30-minute or 1-hour record limit like a lot of other cameras have. And then also you can record all these video modes in OM Log 400, which is OM's log video system. And so that allows you to get better colors, higher dynamic range, and overall just better quality video. And then you're also getting a microphone input for good quality audio, but the internal microphone in this camera is surprisingly pretty decent. Alright, this is stabilization on right now, and I'm at 12 millimeters with the 12 to 45 millimeter lens. I mean, it's kind of crazy how stable this footage is with the stabilization on in this. And this lens doesn't even have stabilization in it. So I'm going to switch stabilization off and we'll see what that looks like. Alright, so now this is stabilization off right now with the 12 to 45 millimeter lens, so there's no stabilization at all right now. And I can tell already how much shakier this looks. Like, there's no comparison, even if you don't have a lens with stabilization. The IBIS on this camera is pretty incredible. So one of the big standout features of a micro four thirds sensor camera like the OM-5 Mark II is of course going to be how much smaller and compact these cameras can be versus their larger sensor counterparts like my full frame Sony a7S III. So this has an OM system 17mm f1.8, which is pretty much a 35mm f1.8 equivalent. And then the a7S III has a Viltrox 35mm f1.8. So with equivalent lenses, you can see the OM-5 Mark II is pretty much half the height of the a7S III. It's also like a fraction of the weight of this. This will be so much easier to take along with you traveling on vacations, hikes, adventures, and things like that. As soon as you start to build out a kit and have multiple lenses and accessories, those are all generally going to be smaller, more compact, and more budget friendly for a micro four thirds system. And that's one of the things I've absolutely loved about carrying this thing around with me. It is so small, it's so light, and so compact. While I wouldn't really call it pocketable, it's just so much lighter and easier to carry around with me in my camera bag versus my a7S III and all my full frame lenses that I usually take with me. Alright, so let's get this thing outside and see what it can do. So right up top, you're getting this button called the Computational Photography button. And it essentially gives you a bunch of different computational photography modes on this camera that do really interesting things with the photos. Again, really great for traveling, for adventurists and things like that. And so you're getting a bunch of different modes like high resolution 80 megapixel photos on a tripod, or even 50 megapixel handheld high resolution photos. You also get a really cool live ND feature. So it's essentially like a built-in ND filter in a way, but it does it digitally. And really the main thing that allows you to do is get some long exposure shots of water and things like that, or like, you know, car headlights or car tail lights. You get those classic long exposure shots without needing a really heavy ND filter or anything like that. And then you're also even getting focus stacking and multiple exposure shots, all with that computational photography mode. And also the fact that it's just right up on top of the camera here, right next to the shutter button. So it's really easy just to switch to one of these modes real quick, get the shot you need, and then just switch right back out of them. You're also getting a feature called ProCap with this. It essentially pre-records photos while you half press the shutter button before you actually take the photo at either 10 photos per second, or you can even do 30 photos per second with single autofocus. Let's see if we got it. That was ProCap 30 frames per second, and this thing is pretty soaked. So when it comes to finding that perfect mix of portability, ruggedness, and quality, you really can't get much better than the OM-5 Mark II. But either way, that's it for me. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.